Morning, everyone. I can feel the excitement in the room. And we have a slightly outdated slide deck, but that is okay because I'm a professional, we can make do. So I want to talk about why we should all be so excited this morning, all right? And Bryan Armstrong, for those that don't know, he's the founder of Coinbase, the company that's probably helped more people get their first digital currencies than any other company in the entire world. And Bryan had to say about digital currencies, and he said this, I think, he's been saying this since I first met him in 2011, but he said this again recently on a fantastic blog post. And he says, digital currency may be the most effective way the world has ever seen to increase economic freedom. If this happens, the implications are profound. It could lift many countries out of poverty, improve the lives of billions of people, and accelerate the pace of innovation in the world. Those are some pretty exciting things to do. And the fact that we're all here at this conference talking about digital currencies means that we're all helping to contribute to these fantastic goals for the entire world. So let's talk about economic freedom and why it's so important, right? Economic freedom is a measure of how easy it is for members of a society to participate in an economy. It has a number of factors such as how easy it is to start a business, whether property rights are enforced, free trade with people in other nations, the regulation of labor and business, and the stability of the currency. And for those that were paying attention just a minute ago, the University of Nicosia had a fantastic little video there about a refugee who came and got a degree from the University of Nicosia and learned all about digital currencies, and now he's running his own business in the Netherlands. A big part of that is thanks to the invention of digital currencies, making that possible, because thanks to digital currencies, you can accept payments or send payments to anyone, anywhere in the world instantly, basically for free. And before the invention of cryptocurrency, that wasn't possible. And here we have a really neat chart where you can see a list of the countries around the world based on the amount of economic freedom they have. And the countries with the most economic freedom in the world are fantastic places to live. Places like Hong Kong, Singapore, New Zealand, Switzerland, Australia, on and on. All great places. And if you look at the list of countries around the world with the least amount of economic freedom, they're places you probably don't want to live. They're places like North Korea, Venezuela, Cuba, and a bunch of other places that aren't so great to live. And you know what they say? They say a picture's worth 1,000 words. Well, I have 4 pictures. We can see Hong Kong in the 1950s versus Hong Kong today, and Havana, Cuba in the 1950s versus Havana today. And we can see that in just a few short decades, Hong Kong, with its huge amount of economic freedom, went from being a little tiny sleepy port town to a world-class economic powerhouse with businesses from all over the world being based there and doing trade from there, and just it's an incredible city. For anybody who hasn't visited Hong Kong, as soon as you land and you see the city, you can just feel the economic power around you in that town. It's a really incredible place. And we also have these pictures of Havana, Cuba over the same time period with not much economic freedom at all. Not much changed there. And so there you are in 4 very short pictures. You can see right before your eyes the difference in 2 different places just by the amount of economic freedom they have. And we can see exactly why this economic freedom is so important. Well, it leads to a higher per capita income. Who wants to have more money? All right, I think everybody likes to have more of that. It leads to a higher life expectancy. Who wants to live longer? All right, I think we all want that too. Higher literacy rates, right? Who enjoys being able to read the slides there, right? That's good too. Better income for the poorest 10% in society, right? Who wants to see the poor be helped as well? Of course, right? Improved environmental protection. Who wants clean air and water and forests and rivers? We all want that too. But if you don't have any money at all and you're worried about where your next meal is going to come from, you don't have time or resources to even worry about keeping the environment clean. Who wants fewer wars and violent conflicts? I hope all of us want that too. I'm sure the refugee we saw in the last video would have loved if there were fewer wars and violent conflicts. Who wants to be happier, right? We all want to be happier. So more economic freedom leads to a higher self-reported happiness of citizens in those countries. And one of my favorite parts of all of this is it leads to less corruption and bribery. Well, let's think about it. Why would that be the case? Well, in an economically free country, if you want to start a business and serve your customers, you basically just do it. And you don't have to beg for permission from all sorts of people. The amount of red tape and paperwork to fill out is very minimal. In an economically unfree country, you have to ask for permission of all sorts of government bureaucrats, and there's all sorts of paperwork to fill out and all sorts of nonsense to deal with. And oftentimes, the easiest way to deal with that bureaucratic red tape is to just plain bribe those government officials. So when there's countries with all sorts of bureaucracy, of course you're going to see more bribery and corruption in those countries because there's more government bureaucracy that you need to bribe your way through. And here we can see it in a picture again. Green is the most economically free country, and red are the least economically free countries. And we can see the income level of the poorest 10% of the society. And it is substantially, substantially higher in countries with more economic freedom than in countries with less economic freedom. And here we can see the overall income per capita in those countries. It is substantially higher in countries with more economic freedom than in countries with less economic freedom. And here we can see the adult literacy rate. It is higher in countries with more economic freedom than in countries with less economic freedom. And here we can see the life expectancy. In countries with more economic freedom, people just plain live longer because they have more money to afford to pay for medical care and good food to eat, and they can have a better life and they'll live longer because of it. So more economic freedom leads to a longer life expectancy. And it leads to less unemployment. Countries with more economic freedom have less unemployment. More people are able to get jobs than in countries with less economic freedom. We can see so clearly there in red are countries with less economic freedom. If there's a whole bunch of bureaucracy and paperwork you have to fill out to start a business or serve your customers or do this and that, less people are going to be able to navigate all that bureaucracy. Less people are going to be able to start a business. Less people are going to be able to hire employees. Less people are going to be able to deal with all that. So as a result, fewer businesses and fewer jobs will be created, and the rate of economic growth in that country will be slower as well. And it's just a lose, 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 lose for every single person involved in that economically unfree country. And before I go to the next slide here, can I see who loves babies? All right? I see a lot of hands going up, especially from the women in the audience. In countries with more economic freedom, fewer babies die at childbirth. And not just a little bit fewer, a lot fewer. So if you want to see less children die at childbirth, you should be supporting more economic freedom, because the more economic freedom a country has, the higher the standard of living of everybody, the more skilled the doctors are going to be, the more doctors are going to be available to help with childbirthing, the fewer children are going to die at childbirth. Whereas in countries with less economic freedom, way more babies die at childbirth. So if you love babies, you should love economic freedom. And here we see another picture of children in the labor force. A lot of people get confused and they think that there aren't kids in the labor force because governments passed laws forbidding children to work in the labor force. But no. The governments didn't pass those laws until long after there had been enough prosperity, thanks to economic freedom, that the kids no longer had to work in the labor force. And there was enough wealth where the parents could support them to go to school and do other things. So we can see right now today, in countries with less economic freedom, there are far more children working in the labor force than in countries with more economic freedom. And like any good statistician or anybody paying attention would like to point out, correlation doesn't prove causation. But when we see example after example in both theory and in practice of how more economic freedom leads to better results for the rich and poor alike, for the old and young alike, for everybody all around in all these countries all over the world, we can make some really, really, really strong inferences. And that brings me to why I think all of us in this room are so incredibly excited about peer-to-peer electronic cash systems, right? That's the very title of the Bitcoin white paper, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. Well, digital currencies that work as cash for the world, they make it easier to start a business, they enforce property rights, they promote free trade, they enable freedom of contract, and they enable people to opt out of corrupt systems. Last night I was sitting next to a buddy of mine from Venezuela who's talking about how digital currencies there are really, really helping people that don't have any other option. And basically, if you think about what they're doing, they're using digital currencies to opt out of a corrupt system. And everybody goes and looks around. They think, oh yeah, Venezuela, they should be allowed to opt out of that because they're definitely corrupt. And everybody thinks, oh, the North Koreans, they should be able to opt out because that government's corrupt. Well, everybody thinks the other guy's corrupt, but look in your own backyard. Maybe things aren't so great where you're at either. And maybe it's time for those of us that don't support the corruption that's taking place to opt out. And before the invention of Bitcoin, there wasn't a way for people to opt out. But now suddenly there is. And back to Bryan Armstrong again, he says, if we can create more economic freedom in the world, it will serve as a giant economic stimulus package for the world, accelerate innovation, reduce wars, make the poorest 10% better off, overthrow corrupt governments, and raise happiness. I think all of those are fantastic goals that we should strive for. And we should stop and think to ourselves, if we're participating in systems that are hindering those goals from being achieved, maybe it's time to opt out. And so that's why I say Bitcoin Cash and digital currencies are the best tools the world has ever seen to accomplish these goals. And I have a little surprise for every single person in the room. I'm sure some of you have tried using Bitcoin Cash because I think it's the most useful digital currency. There's 1,001 different digital currencies out there, and I invite any of you that are interested in this sort of thing and the economic freedom they can bring, research them. Find the ones that seem the most useful to you and use them in your lives. One of my favorite examples is Purse.io. You can save 20 or 30% on every single purchase from Amazon. So even if you're not interested about saving babies from dying and stopping governments from waging wars and dropping bombs on people all over the world, you can save 30% on your next widget from Amazon if you, with Bitcoin Cash. So check out Purse.io to do that. And that's why I'm so excited about all of this sort of thing. And if you are too, I invite you to get started today at bitcoin.com. But it's even better than that. So every single person in this room here, if you check under your seat cushion, there's some free Bitcoin Cash. And it's a random amount for each person in the room. So feel free to dig right underneath your seat and you'll find it. And all you need is your smartphone. And if you install the bitcoin.com wallet and scratch off that QR code there, you'll have some free Bitcoin Cash just like that. And it works for everyone, everywhere in the world, instantly just like that. And if your neighbor gets stuck, help them. And if you're stuck, ask your neighbor for some help. And you can see firsthand just how incredible digital currencies are for the entire world in bringing more economic freedom to the world. And let me know when the first person has managed to successfully claim their Bitcoin Cash from the wallet there. Let's see how long it takes to scratch it off. And share a coin with a friend if you don't have a coin already. So. And I think this is an example of how this can spread, right? It's worth pointing out that the money is literally going to go from wherever directly to your phone. With the bitcoin.com wallet, the money is literally stored on your phone, and it's impossible for anyone, anywhere, to block you from sending or receiving that payment. It's impossible for any government to freeze your account. It's impossible for them to block you from spending it with somebody else. It's impossible for anybody to control it in any way whatsoever. And as Bitcoin Cash becomes more and more popular around the world because it works as cash for the world, you're going to receive a small amount today, I think it's between $1,000 and $1,000 depending on the ticket out there. But in the future it could become worth significantly more than that. So, and I see somebody's claimed theirs as well, so, but start claiming it. And while we're doing that, I think we can probably open it up to some questions and answers. For anybody who doesn't know, I was the first person in the entire world to start investing in this ecosystem. I've been involved full-time for almost 8 years now, every single day. For those that don't know, there was a real exciting event in Bitcoin Cash last night, so I barely slept at all. And but I'm feeling great, because what could be more exciting than spreading tools to bring more economic freedom to the entire world, because more economic freedom improves the lives of everyone, everywhere, in every country. So that's why I'm here today. That's why I was here yesterday for the last 8 years, and that's why I'm going to be here for at least the next 8 years as well. So thank you all very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Roger. Questions, please, from the audience. I guess we're going to have many, especially after yesterday's events.
They might all be busy claiming their free money.
Okay, while they're busy then, let me start with the first question, which is not a question. I'd like your view, your opinion, and your predictions regarding the future of Bitcoin Cash after yesterday's fork, and maybe you could explain to the audience a little bit what this fork was all about and what forks are, because some of the people in the audience might not be familiar even with the idea and the concept of forking a blockchain and creating two different currencies, and why this might happen and what it means both for holders and the future of the currency.
So we just jumped right in headfirst into the pool of Bitcoin politics. So for those that don't know and aren't aware of the Bitcoin politics that are going on, your life is probably a bit happier because of it. But for those that don't know, last night there was an upgrade to the Bitcoin Cash network, but there was a lot of arguing contention as to exactly how that would play out. But I think we should take a step back. Like, a lot of people like to say that I'm the face of Bitcoin Cash. Well, I used to be the face of what everybody was calling Bitcoin since 2011. But my goal isn't to be the face of Bitcoin. My goal isn't to be the face of Bitcoin Cash. My goal is to be the face of bringing more economic freedom to the world, because more economic freedom improves the lives of everyone, everywhere. And I don't care if it's BTC or BCH or ETH, or take your pick with whatever cryptocurrency ticker symbol you want. I don't care which one it is, as long as it works as permissionless cash for the entire world. And so whether it's Bitcoin Cash or something else, it's just fine with me as long as it works. And right now, today, I think Bitcoin Cash is the most useful version of digital currency for the entire world, and that's why I'm busy promoting it. But if tomorrow something even better than Bitcoin Cash comes along, I will gladly promote it. And if we want to dive really deep into the Bitcoin politics, I'll even go so far as to argue that I think Bitcoin Cash is the original Bitcoin, and the thing that everybody in the media is calling Bitcoin today, it's something else. It uses the name Bitcoin, but it's not the Bitcoin described in the original Bitcoin white paper. It's not the Bitcoin that entrepreneurs like myself got excited about and started promoting to the world. And it's not the Bitcoin that people like myself started building business upon. That Bitcoin is Bitcoin Cash today, and that's why I'm busy promoting Bitcoin Cash. Not because I think it's the real Bitcoin. It's because I think that it's the most useful version to bring more economic freedom to the entire world. So that's the lecture on Bitcoin politics for this early morning.
Okay. Questions from our audience, please. Yes.
Yes, Roger. Great presentation. I just want to get your thoughts on importance of some sort of government regulation. It kind of goes to some extent against the cryptocurrency, but at least back in the States, there's a constant discussion on ETF and SEC approval. And whenever the newest ETF gets shut down, and everybody, of course, all the news outlets are covering it, you kind of see the market panic. But now, every time an ETF gets shut down, you see less and less those giant swings, and in a way, the community is starting to understand that the government is not truly needed to regulate cryptocurrency. But I just want to get your thoughts on the importance or the non-importance of government control or some sort of an input in the community.
So I'd like to start out by saying that I'm a giant fan of regulation, but I'm a giant fan of market-based regulation. Because if you look around the world, free markets do the best job of providing their customers with the best quality product at the best possible price with the best terms of service and delivery. And when you get a small group of people that claim to be governmental regulators, oftentimes they know very little or even nothing about what it is they're regulating. And so those aren't the right people to do it. They don't have the incentives in place to want to serve the customer. And we saw a fantastic example of this, I think, back in 2013, maybe. The state of California, the government of California, they sent a cease and desist letter to the Bitcoin Foundation telling them to cease and desist operating as a money transmitter. So if you think about what that is, it's a bunch of people that had never met anybody at the Bitcoin Foundation, sending them a letter telling them to stop what they're doing. And the people that sent that letter didn't even understand what it was the Bitcoin Foundation was doing. It's just an advocacy group. They're not operating as a money transmitter. So it just shows just how crazy it can be right there. And I remember the whole Bitcoin community got a big laugh at that letter. But time and time again, if you look at it, The private businesses do the best job of serving their customers. McDonald's has a huge incentive to provide people with food all over the world. Walmart has a huge incentive to provide their customers with good products at a low price. The businesses do that. Ask yourself, where do you get better service at McDonald's or at the DMV? And do people in Europe know what the DMV is? The Department of Motor Vehicles. Or take your favorite or least favorite government office and ask yourself, do you get better service there or at your local business? And of course you get better service at the local business. So I'm a huge fan of regulation, but I think the regulatory pressure should come from the market and competition amongst businesses, not from a small group of people in government that don't usually know about whatever it is they're even trying to regulate at all. So thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Don't be shy, or if not, make sure you claim your Bitcoin Cash. And you can get even more free Bitcoin Cash by visiting free.bitcoin.com, and you can tell all your friends about it as well. And start using it as cash. If we want to bring more economic freedom to the world, it shouldn't just be some speculative asset. It needs to start being used as money for the world, just like in the very title of the original Bitcoin white paper. It was Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. So let's start using it as cash. And I see one more question here.
Roger, how is mass adoption going to take place, or how can it be catalyzed, like particularly in Africa?
So mass adoption is going to take place with your help and my help, and the help of every single other person in this room. Because if we're excited about the positive benefits that this sort of technology is going to bring to the world, let's tell our friends, let's tell our neighbors, let's tell our family, let's tell our children, let's tell our parents, let's tell everybody, and get them set up with a wallet, show them how easy it is, show them how they can save a bunch of money on Amazon using Purse.io. Tell people about this fantastic tool that we have to empower every single human being on the planet to have control over their own lives. This is a fantastic thing for every single person on the planet. And as everybody says, the years go by faster and faster the older you get. Well, let's stop wasting time. Let's bring these changes to the world sooner rather than later. So with your help and my help and everybody else in this room's help, we can bring those changes about sooner rather than later. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Roger. It was a pleasure and honor having you.